for President Schultz to join us, I will go ahead and get started with our presentation. Before that, just thank you to everyone for all of your hard work this past year. I know it's been quite a year for staff, faculty, and students at WSU, and we would just like to say thank you. So, get this up here. Oh. Okay, so APAC. So who is APAC? APAC is comprised of 30 administrative professional employees representing all campuses and extension offices. We have 24 council members and 6 alternates. Council members represent a variety of areas, including academic, managerial, and upper administration throughout the WSU system. You can see a complete list of APAC members on our website. And before I move on, I need to remind everyone that this session is being recorded, and the recording will be on the APAC website at a later date. So I would like to pass it off to Margaret to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Margaret Singbile, and I'm the treasurer for APAC this year. It's been a pleasure to serve you guys, and I work for the Rebo office out of WSU Seattle.
Thanks, Margaret. We're going to tell you a little bit about APAC before we get into our question and answer session with WSU administration. Here's a list of all of your Pullman APAC representatives. We have representatives from throughout the campus in different areas, colleges, and departments. We will be welcoming a new set of council members for this next academic year at our May 13th meeting. So overall, APAC's mission is to support AP professionals system-wide. So we act as liaisons with upper administration, HRS, communicating concerns, emerging issues that AP staff have. We provide advocacy for APs across the system. Some of our programs and services, we have a strong professional development initiative. So we offer multiple workshops and seminars throughout the academic year. We host Staff Appreciation Week, which typically has workshops, discounts, and socials included in the schedule. We offer many grants and scholarships for APs to apply for. Stay tuned for our new mini grant program launching this next academic year. We've changed it up a little bit, so APs will have more access to our $250 mini grant awards. We also have the AP Contribution Awards, where we recognize 6 outstanding APs at our last meeting of the year. And this year, we get to recognize 10 AP professionals from throughout the system at our May 13th meeting. And then be on the lookout for our newsletters each month. We have information about trainings, programs, opportunities, information sharing for AP staff in our newsletter each month. Some of the committees that we have are the Budget Committee, Bylaws, Employee Scholarships, Marketing and Communication, Professional Development, Events, Career Ladder, Strategic Planning, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We also have a small Salary and Compensation work group. All council members are part of these committees, but any AP individual from throughout the system can join as an ex officio member. So if you have any interest in working with APAC on any of these topics, or you have new topics that you would like to bring up, please feel free to email that to us or join us at any time. On the screen are 2 of our professional development programs that we've offered this last year. They were great hits, and we're hoping to offer more this next year. Our monthly meetings are the second Thursday of the month, 9 to 10:30 a.m. All are welcome, and we will always be holding these meetings via Zoom, even as we return to our primary work locations. We've had great involvement and attendance offering our meetings via Zoom, so we will continue with that. At our upcoming meeting, we have Mary Anita Nesbitt and Matthew Jeffries presenting on the Community and Equity Certificate that is available for WSU faculty and staff. We will be also recognizing our award winners. Some of our goals for APAC in the coming years is increased participation from across the WSU system. We hope for an increase of the level of advocacy that we can provide for our AP employees. We're working on our strategic plan that will kind of outline these goals in a formal way. Information sharing with upper administration, working on a career ladder for administrative professionals with HRS, and then just expanding our professional development offerings. And really, we'd like to hear from our constituents of what are topics that you want us to work on. We know that things are happening and changing all of the time, so please feel free to let us know. And how you can be heard. Monthly meetings are open to all all AP employees. We do have a new business portion where new business can be brought up, and you're encouraged to attend. We love seeing new people. And you can visit the APAC webpage and click the contact button and send us an email. You can reach out to an APAC representative from any campus or any location. You can just choose whoever from our contact list. You can email me directly as chair. And if you'd like to become involved, you can apply to serve on the council. Every year we have new positions opening up, and we'd be happy to see you on there. And just a reminder that the APAC Executive Committee meets monthly with President Schultz, Provost Chilton, and Teresa Elliott-Cheslick, making sure that your voice is heard and that any emerging issues are discussed. So with that, that is APAC and what we do. I am going to turn it over to our question and answer session. And I would like to welcome and introduce President Kirk Schultz, Elizabeth Chilton, Provost, Teresa Elliott-Cheslick, and Stacy Pearson here. And I can jump right into questions, or if you would like to say anything to get us started, I'm happy to open it up.
And I would just say, we thank everybody for being here, and thank you for all the work that you all do each and every day on our campuses. So look forward to answering questions, having dialogue about anything that's on your mind. And I know with our communication that many of you have probably seen this morning about moving people back into the workplace, or back into a physical location on campus, let's put it that way, that there's bound to be questions and concerns. So happy to answer anything. And generally speaking, when I start talking, Teresa winces, so I'll try not to say anything too terrible that causes a direct slap on the wrist, but I can't guarantee that. So anyway, Anna, go take it away.
Great, thank you so much. I do have a list of pre-submitted questions that I will start with, but if anyone has any questions as we begin the conversations, feel free to drop them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and unmute and we can ask live questions as well. So sorry, let me get my list up. The first question, it's kind of a big topic. It is surrounding the vaccine. Oh yes, and happy birthday to President Schultz. I did see that on Twitter this morning, so happy birthday. For the vaccine questions, the first question is a lot over how the exemptions is going to work, how people will submit if they have gotten the vaccine, those records. But the first question is, what does personal reason in the exemption criteria mean?
Teresa, go ahead.
Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for having us. I'm actually going to turn this over to Kendra Wilkins-Fontenot, our Director of Disability Services, who can help with that question.
Well, I don't know about help, but at least I can answer what we know right now. So I think a lot of you have seen the communication. Obviously, most people have seen the communication that went out. But at this time, I think it's very important to know that the decisions on the vaccine requirements for employees are still being reviewed. We appreciate everybody's patience, but there's lots of things that are still up in the air. What exemptions are going to look like. We are even working with the group that's working with students just to see how that would, look as far as how the information is going to be tracked. We're looking into those things. So whether or not it's, yes, I have the vaccine, or I would like an exemption of, A, B, or C, we are still trying to identify how that will work and even the parameters around each one, what would be and what would not be required.
I would also say at this point that we want to be, as a leadership team, positive, encouraging employees to be vaccinated. We can worry about exactly what the requirement is and what the exemptions are and all that. But right now, one of the challenges in really mitigating the influence of COVID-19 on our communities, and certainly here in Pullman and Whitman County, is just more of our population being vaccinated. So I think you're going to see a lot of positive messaging and encouragement over the next 6 weeks in particular about just, hey, let's get as many of our colleagues vaccinated as possible. We'll worry about the exemptions, and I know people are concerned about that, but it's still going to be a little bit of time. And I just want to emphasize, we had lots of conversations about this, lots of people. We had two real options. One was to come out early with, here's what we believe we should do, understanding that there were some details to be worked out. The second, and that's what we did. The second option is you work all the details out, you roll out a baked cake, and that way everything is there, but that takes longer. And then people get increasingly frustrated going, other people made the decision, where is WSU? So even though I understand some discomfort about those details, we really felt the right thing to do was say, here's where we're planning to go, details will follow. So we're working with other universities in the state on what they're doing. Teresa and our HR staff are working on this, as well as Danielle, our general counsel, on legally what can do and not do. And then, we have to look at things like our athletic events in the fall. Will there be some sort of requirements to attend? How is that going to work? Got a lot of questions like that, and we're going to spend a lot of time communicating through social media, messaging to campus, just about every way that we can, kind of where we are. And I'm going to acknowledge at the beginning, not everybody's going to agree with all of our decisions. I know that, but I think at least I want people to understand we're trying to do it on the basis of what we think will be best and safest for our community.
Great, thank you. So this question, is there an anticipated timeline for when those processes will be available and communicated?
What I will say is that we will continue to just keep communications open, but I want to be real careful about saying it's a date, because things keep changing and moving in the state. As an example, and I'll try and keep my cynicism out of this, when are we in phase 2 or phase 3 in a county that, as a well-established guidelines until it doesn't. And so I want us to be careful about expectations that, May 21st, we're going to know everything. We're going to continue to kind of work. But as you all have seen with the COVID phase 2 and phase 3, the governor's changed his mind, a couple times around where that stuff's going to be. And sometimes that's on a dime. It's pivoting very quickly. So we also got to be a little flexible with when those are. So, it's going to be a bit before we're going to have all those things worked out. And again, I know that's not what you want to hear, but I think I want to be completely forthright that until we have a little more solid set of some stuff, we don't want to set everything down.
you. Tony, you have a question.
Sure, thanks. And President Schultz, just to, I mean, I watch the YouTubes, the pitchforks come out. It doesn't matter if you try to have a well thought out, comprehensive plan, you waited too long. If you show any of your cards too early, then you didn't do the right thing because you didn't have it fully, vetted out. There's no win. People are going to be upset regardless. So just, we appreciate what you're doing. And, I mean, we're all humans and it could change on a dime, like you said. So my question, this is probably for Teresa, and I am squeamish to even ask the question, but I have a number of APs that work for me, and I have a number of civil service that work for me that do more or less the same job. And everybody understands it's a pandemic, and everybody understands that there were matters that were out of their hands, but it was a sore subject. And I just don't even know what to tell people. When the civil service all got their July 1st raise and our planned 1.5% didn't happen, and we don't know what's going to happen, I don't know what to tell them. And I don't know. I mean, it's just frustrating as a director or a manager to try to navigate those waters. And when the state's not leveling the playing field, I mean, if we all forego it then that's one thing, and I understand that there were matters and unions and other things involved that stood in that way. But is there any insight? Is there any talking points or way to have that conversation?
Teresa, I'll take this one. I know you're eager to hit the mute and start in on this. Tony, I think and thank you for bringing this up. I mean, it's a great question, and it's a concern, for AP staff. It's a concern for faculty. Whenever you have a disproportionate number of employees get some sort of salary increase and others don't, people appropriately are upset, and there's a fairness issue and all that. So that being said, we just don't know quite where we're going to be on the budget so that we can determine what we can do with raises even in the next 12 to 18 months. And by that, we don't know what our enrollment's going to look like for the fall. We know it's better than it was 2 months ago. We know where the state came down, which was that we didn't take massive cuts from the state. We now know where the tuition percentage increase is going to be. That was approved by the regents, so you can kind of predict that. The big thing that's still floating out there that we don't know is what our enrollment's going to look like in the fall, and how the federal funds are going to kind of help backfill and things like that. What I don't want to do is come out and say, we're going to do X% at this particular date and then backtrack it because we didn't have all the data and information. Now, that's frustrating to employees going, hey, my expenses are going up and my salary's not. But at the same time, I've got to look and make sure that we're being fiscally responsible so that when we do announce this is what we're going to do, that we've actually are doing it where, and I've worked at a place where we would announce a employee salary increase and then a budget cut. And people are like, well, yeah, my salary increased, but now I don't have support staff because we had to cut it. So I want to just make sure we package all this together. APAC will have representation when we do our budget review meetings of all the colleges and campuses and stuff like that. That's not a decision point, but that is where we all kind of lay it out and see where we are. So the bottom line is, I understand people are upset. Look, you all are not paid what you should be paid across campus. I mean, that's our campuses. I acknowledge that freely, and we need to do everything we can to enhance salaries. I just want to make sure we do it in a fiscally responsible manner. And I expect this fall, we should be able to start talking a little bit about what that's going to look like in terms of percentage and timing and things like that. So that may not be what everybody wants to hear, but that's, I think, where we're going to come down. And I just don't want to get out there too soon before we've really made sure that we understand where things are.
Well, I know from my perspective, I'm not at all upset that I did not, as an AP, get the raise that had been planned and intended. I mean, this upended everything. We get that, right? The challenge is that the state did one thing with one hand and did something completely else. And it's because they're different, they're controlled completely differently. And we get that. It's more of a matter of how do you address that, other than just to throw your hands up and say the state did that. And, I mean, honestly, I don't know how you would give a raise right now, because the pitchforks will come back out, right? I mean, if all these budget issues are a hot button issue, I don't want to throw athletics under the bus, but every time I see it, it's like, well, they're funding athletics, but they're not doing all these other things. And I'm like, look, people just don't get how the world works. I get that. But I mean, we are still in a budget crisis because of this pandemic. And I don't know how you would say, yeah, hey, we're going to give a raise to our AP employees. Because, I mean, people are going to have a field day with that. I do not envy your position, but I am definitely appreciative that you are aware of, what we as APs and certainly faculty members are faced with, and how we have these conversations, and to try to be equitable in an unequitable situation. So I appreciate it.
I want to say too, thanks, Tony, but I really don't worry about the pitchforks very much, because in general, right, as a president or vice president or leader, and many of you lead different things on campus, there's always going to be some disagreement. That's a little bit of inherent in higher ed. That's just kind of the way we work. And I tell people I have one of the few jobs that virtually everybody who works with me could go, hey, I could do that job better. And that's okay. That's just the way it is. So we're just going to continue to openly communicate. We're going to share and be transparent with budgetary data. And I think at the end of the day, people may disagree, but if people see everything, they go, okay, I now understand why that decision was made, because it makes sense. Where the problem becomes, if I go, just trust me, this is what we should do, people should throw the BS flag and say, that's not appropriate. We are smart men and women, and we would like to see the same information, Kirk, you have, and we're going to continue to do that. So, and then when the pitchforks get too bad, I just blame Elizabeth. That's what a provost is really for, is to take the blame when the president doesn't want it. Stacy also is a good target, but.
Awesome. Okay, so for our next question, I know that the communication that went out this morning might have helped this a little bit, but I'm still going to ask. With return to work, or return to our primary workplace location, plans coming out with established dates, how flexible will schedules be with some or all continued remote work, and how would that be requested?
Teresa, this is all you.
Okay, great. So we tried to, in that communication, allow the flexibility for your the different campuses, the different units, the different type of work people are doing throughout our WSU system. So there's flexibility built into that. The process of requesting, what type of schedule you specifically may need for your area, that should be through your supervisor, manager. And if there are issues regarding the need to continue remote work, or you want to maybe request working remote formally for a longer period of time, those are all available to employees and at the decision makers of your area or campus. And then if somebody is having difficulties or concerns with that, they could reach out to HRS, and we can see if we can facilitate a discussion with the employee and the manager as to why, one way or the other, if there's an option for that employee to do something different. We recognize, and with the support of Kirk and Elizabeth, that there needs to be a transition period for a lot of people who maybe have been working remote or at an alternative location before they're coming back to campus, or trying to build in a date so people start thinking about it and people start planning what's going to work best for their area. And we anticipate a lot of people will be in hybrid models throughout the for a while.
And I might add to that, I realize that when people are sort of used to a particular work environment and feel that they're successfully doing their job, that, you know, kind of a transition feels difficult at times. We've gone largely back to everybody being present in the president's office, and there are some adjustments. For one, it's noisier. I was used to, me and Ginger and Chris Hoyt were like the three people in here, and we're each almost equally spread apart, right? You can shout at each other, but it's very quiet. Now with everybody back, it's noisier, and I got to remember to wear my mask when I step outside the office, not outside the office, in the hallway. These are trivial things, but there is some adjustment. Everybody's got to remember to make when starting to interact with people again, not via Zoom or phone or text. And now on the positive side, what's happened is some stuff that used to take us a long time to do. People texting back and forth, let's go on Teams, let's do this. Now they literally walk down to one office and it's solved in 30 seconds. So there is some positive parts of being back. And I know people are balancing children at home, elder care, lots of other kinds of things. That's why we were trying to do this on a transition. We're trying to give people time and not do an announcement that says everybody better have their rear end back in their office in 7 days. You know, we're trying to do this in a reasoned fashion. So reach out to our HRS colleagues if anybody's frustrated or doesn't feel that, you know, their supervisor is providing the flexibility that they need. I know Teresa and her team, most of whom are on here, are more than happy and willing to work with people to make sure that we can find a way to accommodate needs as they arise. So.
And if it's all right, I was going to have Lisa Gehring just kind of go over the training that we have available, and also maybe a little update on where we're at with revising the telework process.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. I put it in the link. We have the return to work training that's offered for employees and supervisors. And it's really walking through, having the discussion of how do you plan, what are the things that should be considered, and at the end, provide an opportunity for both supervisors and employees to ask questions. And then in terms of return to work information, our website will be updated today with additional information that kind of replicates what's offered in that training, and provide a checklist of those things that should be considered as employees are starting to come to return to work. But always, if there's ever a concern, is certainly contact our office. If you go to our website and you just Google report a concern, there's a form that will come up. You can report that way. You can call us, you can email us, and we can look into those, because this isn't a one size fits all. We'll be navigating this and trying to adjust it as we go. So we'll continually update the information on our website as needed.
And I believe the telework agreement is in process. So currently the link is to the telework agreement that's been there for a while, but we're working on a streamlined version to get that out there. Hopefully that'll be done in the next few weeks, approved anyway.
And we will occasionally, I will slip on my language and say return to work. Everybody's been working, it's return to site, and we want to, I'll get better as I think about that, because people have been working like I do from a variety of different locations around the state, right? It's not people were off and now they're back to work. And I think it's important that, you know, I in particular as president use the right language. So.
So question on the telework, Teresa, will a telework agreement be needed for anyone working remotely after July 12th?
And Lisa Gehring.
Yeah, it will only be required after July 12th if the telework is unrelated to COVID. So through this process, we learned there are positions that will successfully be able to telework, maybe on a part-time or full-time basis. If the telework is unrelated to COVID, yes, they should have a telework agreement in place. If the telework is part of that transition to return to work, so for example, maybe you're doing a rotation with the anticipation at some point everybody will return to the work location, then a telework agreement isn't required.
Great, that is very helpful. Thank you. So moving on, this question comes from border employees. How would border employees become exempt from paying into the Washington Long-Term Care Fund that they will not have access to? Can anything be done at the state level on behalf of this population of employees?
And Anna, I'm going to let our Director of Benefits Services, Ann Monroe, answer that on that long-term care process.
So at this point, the legislation, as well as all the information that's coming out from the state, which is primarily Employment Security Department and DSHS, are the two administering agencies for this particular benefit, reads that those that reside in Washington will be eligible for a future benefit. And it then leads you to believe if you don't reside in Washington, you would not be. So the only exemption that they've identified at this point is if somebody has purchased a private long-term care insurance policy that they'll be able to submit to the state in October to request an exemption. And so that's the only exemption they've identified this far. I will let you know they are still working on the rules for this particular legislation. So potentially there could be something that comes out of that. But at this point, the only thing that they have identified is the purchasing of alternative coverage that would allow somebody to exempt themselves out. On behalf of all of us that, all of our campuses, you know, here in Pullman, Spokane, Tri-Cities, Vancouver, all of those are right along the bordering states of Oregon and Idaho. I have specifically mentioned we have a large number of employees that live out of state. And if any updates are coming to notify me as soon as possible, but I'm sure I'll be notified with the group presentations or announcements that come out from those agencies when they are made statewide.
Great, thank you, Anne. Let's see here. So this one is probably for Stacy, but any budget updates? Are system-wide furloughs still on the table?
Thank you. Well, some good news is system-wide furloughs are not still on the table. That was some good news that we received from the state. So that's happy news. Our budget is still challenged, and for the following reasons. I think Kirk, President Schultz alluded to this earlier. Right now, our enrollments are down, and they're down enough that they will continue to have budgetary impacts. And so as we work through this summer, as we project our budgets for fiscal year 22, that will have to be taken into account. The good news is we do have some federal funding coming in that is going to help us with one-time types of expenses. You know, so that will help alleviate some of this. But as we go into the new year, what I don't see is that we'll have to retain the 10% reduction that we did last year, but it will still be likely be a reduction because of those enrollment projections.
If I can add to that, a couple things. One is what we've learned through the pandemic is all of our models suck. They're not any good during the pandemic. So everything lags. So when you hear Stacy go, well, we project this, but we're not sure kind of thing. The problem is what we found is things have lag. And then sort of sometimes at the last minute, they tend to, you know, close a gap that we thought would be much more extreme. We just simply do not know. And so I think that's going to be a really important, you know, kind of part going forward. The second is we've got budget hearings scheduled for August. And what these are, just so everybody's aware, is deans, chancellors, vice presidents present where their budget is, how they intend to, you know, meet any sort of targets that we might put up there, what types of things we have to do. And everybody can see everybody else's presentation. This isn't secret. And when we did this last year, people were like, wow, I had no idea that's what the arts and sciences budget was, or what challenges College Y had or Campus X had, so it was actually really good for people to get a sense of what the challenges were in each unit. And you would think they'd all be the same. If we have 15 presentation, there's 16 different challenges that everybody's facing. And so that openness and talking about impacts and what things would do, I think has been really helpful. The other thing that we need to do is, when I was a dean of engineering, the provost I reported to, he only cared about state money. We were the wealthiest college at my two institutions ago because we had more donors and all this stuff, and he never cared about that kind of money. Well, it turns out that was a big part of how we operated. So the other thing we have to do with our budgeting is it's all funds. It's not you're just going to talk about 17A money, or you're just going to talk about the money that you get that's from enrollment-based budgeting or these other kind of things. It needs to be a complete picture. And that's the direction that Stacy and Elizabeth are moving us in terms of budget transparency. So I understand, heck, I'm as frustrated as everybody is that here we are, we're going to get to the end of the fiscal year. We don't know everything that we would like to, but that's part of the reality of where we are today. The other part of this is everybody on this call, our faculty, our leadership, did a great job of mitigating the $30 million annual operating deficit we had, several years ago. And if we had not made those choices at that time, we would be in a world of hurt right now. So the fact that everybody kind of rolled up their sleeves and actually returned us to a positive operating balance at the end of the fiscal year last year really made a big positive difference in our ability to sort of mitigate and minimize position loss or other types of things. Stacy, is there anything I said there that you would maybe disagree with or suggest further details?
No, I think you covered it. Obviously, what we would like to do, not only with this revised budget process, but start gathering, getting information together sooner, just based on past history, because having all these decisions made late in the year makes it really difficult for people to plan. So admittedly, COVID has created this kind of extraordinary circumstance, but it also, as we look to the future, it just seems like we can look to these past years, these past decisions. For instance, when we look at enrollments, we're comparing it to where we were this time last year. Well, let's admit these 2 years have been kind of unique. So we would like to get better at projecting that, maybe with a little bit of a cushion so that we can get information out there sooner.
And sorry, this is such an involved topic. The other thing that I'd like Elizabeth and Stacy to talk about is, as we look at constructing a new budget model for the university, for example, one of the things Stacy has talked about is that we should have, if you will, sort of an enrollment buffer fund, so that if you see a 3% decrease in students 1 year or whatever, that you have a centralized resource that you use to kind of buffer that, as opposed to being in crisis mode. And I think, essentially making sure we've got some savings accounts that aren't spent, but are really kind of used to help mitigate those effects. And Stacy, you and Elizabeth might talk about this, because this is going to be important, and it relates to, are you going to do the 10%, or is it going to be less? It could be that we take some of those dollars and put them in these funds so that people go, okay, my budget's going to be consistent over the next several years, as opposed to kind of up and down. Stacy, maybe you can start and Elizabeth can chime in.
Yeah, it just as President Schultz indicates, it's the more we can create these, reserve funds, if you will, that are central, we'll be better able to kind of absorb, some level of impact on our revenue, say a 1 or 2% enrollment decline, without having to go out and adjust budgets, which is what we currently have to do. So, last year we did the 10% reduction because of the information from the state. Well, on top of that, we had, we had enrollment declines that impacted tuition. So we're studying that information, but part of this budget process is to say, if you create these reserve funds, then you can absorb some of this without having to go back out to all of the units for a budget impact. As you know, when we did the 10% reduction, we did it for a three-year period. And as I've indicated, even though we have some challenges coming up this year, we don't think we'll have to retain that, but there will be a reduction of some amount for the coming year. So we just have to keep that in mind. So, but again, just get better at planning, keep with the transparency, but leverage this new budget model to help us bring in those other funding sources that can help us get through these periods.
Yeah, I just echo what Stacy said and also say that, the idea behind strategic budget planning is that it's consistent with our desire as a system to be data informed and to be strategic about decisions. A 10% across the board budget cut is on its face equitable, but it isn't particularly strategic. And some areas are able to endure that easier than others are. And so what we'd like to do is have more transparency and clarity. The budget hearings are one way to do that, but this new way of looking at our budget information through the Executive Budget Council's budget model is to be able to have unit leaders have more tools at their disposal to make informed decisions that are more strategic. And also, as Kirk said, then have a central fund. Sometimes budget planners call this a central steering wheel, so that we can weather some storms and not say, well, every unit on its own, or instead say that, we've got hands on the wheel, and we're able to make sure we're serving the whole institution, again, rather than being so decentralized in our budget decisions that we end up with very uneven quality and equity across the system.
Sorry, my mouse was stuck there. This question somewhat relates to the budget, but in the April 1st, 2020 communication, the WSU hiring freezes were announced. But we've seen numerous vacancy postings since then. Is the hiring freeze still in place? If so, will it be lifted? What will change? And the hiring freeze statement may be impacting current hiring pools for open positions. So any comments on that one?
So I got several communications as president from VPs asking the same question because the state lifted some of their things. To be frank, we had so many moving parts happening that I thought an announcement like that just kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and we've got Workday and all those kind of things going on. So my intent is to lift it this summer, and I just want to make sure that we sort of do it in a controlled fashion, that people are going to want to know where their budgets are before they necessarily go and do lots of hiring. And so there's a lot of things going together, but I intend to lift that. So, I mean, it was done by us, right? It's not, we weren't forced to do that. So that's really our decision. So we will, I think people can expect to see that announcement, but it'll be a little bit, my suggestion to Stacy was that we just do it with the new fiscal year, but there's nothing, if people need to hire, work with HR. I mean, I would say the same thing, work with HRS and make sure it's a priority, but we also want to be careful that units don't all of a sudden go out and do this hiring spree. And then we say, oh, by the way, here's where your budget is. So it's going to require not just us lifting it, but, real work at the central level with leadership on what's a critical hire at this time, what's not, those types of things.
Great, thank you. Let's see here, sorry. Oh, this one is about Workday. Many staff across the system are still struggling to complete the required tasks in Workday. It would be helpful for many to have more in-person assistance and training opportunities about how to apply current tasks for specific departmental needs in the Workday tool. What are the avenues for staff to request additional job-related assistance if it is not available in their current department?
And Anna, I have Jennifer Klein, who's the director of HCM modernization, so she can give you some, respond to that question.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, all. So on the Workday side, we have heard from constituents that we just need to have some more training out there. So one of the things that we've done is held open office hours or open Q&A sessions, if you will, by topic for people to be able to come in and get some more information. They can bring their use cases, the things that they have questions on, to those sessions. If you go to the modernization homepage, it's actually right there on the homepage right now. You can click into the events calendar. We have those scheduled throughout the summer, actually almost into fall, by topic. And so we do have breakout rooms in there for people to be able to go ask some specific questions, especially in HR, some maybe that's sensitive information we don't want to share with a large group. So we do provide breakout rooms within those sessions, and within the calendar, you'll be able to see what topic it is, as well as all the Zoom details and information. So you could join any of those sessions by topic. We will be scheduling additional sections by topic should we need, again, throughout the summer and looking into fall. And then maybe specific to the HR side of the house, we do have HR consultants that are assigned to each college, campus, and area that are available for specific HR questions. They can always reach out to their HR consultant. And then some additional training that we have been working on. As we tweak some of our configuration and some of the things within Workday, we do update those reference guides, and we do provide an update to all the reference guides that were updated during that week, as well as any new reference guides and training material that are out there. And those are posted within our weekly Workday digest. And employees are encouraged to subscribe to that digest, and so they can get that information delivered to their inbox every day. And again, that is also right on the homepage of the modernization site. Those are two things that we're really trying to get into the hands of folks, is additional training and then updates to the current training that we have.
I also want to acknowledge too that I know Workday has been difficult for a lot of folks, and it's changed a lot of how we do things. I still am the internal glasses half full. I think we're better off in the long run with a modern cloud-based system, but I know it's been frustrating to individuals. And, we had something held up on a vice president, and they were like, hey, Kirk, you need to actually go into your inbox and approve it. That's a small thing, but it's a habit of pull it open every day and kind of look at it kind of thing. So I just want to make sure that I know it's been tough. I appreciate everybody working hard on it. Jennifer, thanks for your comment. And, we got so many people on this call that worked really hard to make it a success. So 2 years from now, we'll all have a nice beverage and go, man, Workday is awesome. But I know at the current time, not everybody feels Workday is awesome. And when you could do a job in 30 minutes previously, and now it takes you 3 hours to do because you can't figure it out, it doesn't look real good, but we'll get there. So appreciate everybody's flexibility, and I appreciate our Workday team continuing to work with everybody on training and ways to do things better.
Great, thank you. We have about 10 minutes left, so a couple more questions. If you have any live questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. But the next question is on promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in recruitment and retention practices. What action steps are being taken to review WSU's internal policies and recruitment and retention practices to more clearly promote diversity, equity, and inclusion? Has there been a consideration of cluster hires for AP staff in areas to promote community and retention?
I'll say just a little bit, and then Teresa, I'm hoping you can say something about the cluster hires for AP staff, in our WSU context. But just to say that we are, as many of you know, initiating a faculty cluster hire with scholarship teaching and community engagement surrounding issues of racism and social inequality in the Americas. And the idea is to attract and retain a more diverse faculty, but also have them contribute to scholarship in the areas that we're trying to address. That in turn will affect the curriculum and the teaching that they do. In my past experience, it affects our ability to recruit and retain a more diverse student body as well. And it provides a stronger sense of inclusiveness and climate for the campus as a whole, including staff. And so we are just in the process of bringing in, we're about to have an announcement this week in WSU Insider on the first 5 hires for that. Next year, we're focusing on health disparities and health equity. And so there'll be 5 more announced for next year and then the following year as well. So we committed to a minimum of 3 years, and then we'll see where we are given all of our budget discussions just now. But these people are going to contribute to teaching and research in WSU in general. These are not add-ons. These are part of our core mission, and they're fulfilling core mission areas. What I will say is that part of that is a rethink of our mentoring. And this is something that I do think we could talk about across all faculty and staff, is thinking about mentoring not as a top-down process, but as something where there is mutual mentoring happening between mentors and mentees. And it's more of a network-based focus on faculty, for faculty mentoring, but it absolutely, the guiding principles can be applied to staff. I am not even 10 months in my job. And so I'm not familiar right now. And I'm sure Teresa and colleagues will correct me on, what kinds of mentoring we do for staff currently. But I do think there's a way to think about, all employees in this philosophy of network-based mentoring, because it's been shown again and again to better support both people of color, women in underrepresented areas, much better than a kind of top-down traditional mentoring where some people just don't get asked out for that cup of coffee and miss out on a great deal of learning opportunities. So Teresa, do you want to say more about that, or Kirk?
So basically one of the challenges that I think many rural land grant type of universities have, and this was in my previous couple places I worked and in Pullman, so we sort of have this habit of just doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And so I think when it comes to diversifying faculty and staff, some of the things that we were doing before, they just really weren't working very well. We hired great, capable people, but every time we'd have a person of color leave a key position, it represents a significant percentage change because our numbers are small. We've got to do better. So I want ideas. I think we've got to look at lots of things. And if there's cluster type hires that we can do at the staff level, and that makes sense, and we can figure out how to do it legally and all that stuff, which I think we can, those are the ideas that we need to move things forward. And I appreciate what we're doing with our faculty. I think that's a positive step in the right direction. And we've got some exciting new colleagues. We need to do similar, different types of things to attract staff and support staff of color as well. So, anybody who's listening today, we need ideas and things. You say, hey, this is something that I'm familiar with at University X, Y, or Z, or somewhere I used to go, or a company I used to work with, or a colleague I've got, and they've done this, and this seems to work. Only by harvesting those ideas and executing can we make it happen. But it's got to be a priority for the institution. And people have been working in this space for 50 years at WSU. So this isn't new, but to me, we got to bend the curve a bit and really make a difference more than incremental change. We've got to make significant changes. And it's recruitment, it is retention, it is making sure that when people come in, that they have a supportive work environment that allows them to grow professionally. They have a community that supports them as well. And I'm not talking about professionally, I'm talking about outside of the workplace environment. It's a lot of aspects and they all need work.
Yeah, and I have nothing to add. I think Kurt covered it and Elizabeth really well. I think for 5 minutes left.
Yeah, there's 5 minutes left. There is one question, I think for Stacy, potentially about the 10% parking increase that was approved by the Board of Regents for the Pullman campus. Can you help explain and justify the impact for those price increases?
Sure. The justification, of course, is we're just really, really behind on deferred maintenance for the parking lots and parking garages in Pullman, and tried to make some headway. It went through the process with the task force over a year ago, but we withdrew it from the Regents' consideration and so brought it back this year. So as painful as it is, it's just one of those things that we need to do. We haven't had significant parking rate increases. Of course, we did have the zone change and we recognize that, but I've just looked at their deferred maintenance list and they're so far behind it. I just think that we have to move ahead on some of these because in the end, they create safety issues for us. So that is what we're doing with that money.
And I also want to just say, I understand increases in parking are never popular. And then if you tack that on with not increases in salary, it sort of goes from aggravating to sort of rubbing salt in the wound. So, you know, we needed to do it. We deferred it from a year ago. We knew that we weren't going to receive a lot of positive kudos over doing it. You know, to me, we need to improve those parking structures and deferred maintenance. The bigger issues, we need to get salaries up and make sure that we're starting to make progress on increasing that as well. So, Amanda, I appreciate the comment, and I know it's shared by a whole lot of people. I appreciate you asking it.
Great. So thank you so much for such a great conversation. We have just a couple minutes left, and I would like to say thank you to everyone for their comments and answers. And I will hand it off if there are any parting comments from anyone else.
Well, I would, let me just again express my appreciation to all of you for the work you continue to do for our students, for your colleagues, things like that. I made it through one recession as a president. And I was like, oh, I never have to do this again. So this time was a recession and a pandemic. I just, you know, it's been a stressful time for everybody. But when I listened to some of our students at graduations this last weekend talk about resiliency, making it through, how difficult and challenging it was, that applies to all of you all as well. So I just thank you for your continued dedication to success and to excellence, and it makes a big difference. And as I sent a message to the cabinet this weekend, I hope everybody takes some time away, and you don't have to go somewhere glamorous, but I think it's important to take some time away from the workplace, not look at your phone, not look at your email, and do whatever, whether it's sitting on your porch and reading a book or travel or whatever, doesn't matter. But please make sure you do something and get refreshed, because none of us are used to 21,000 students back in Pullman, and I'm anticipating it, but life will feel different in the fall, and we all need to be energized and ready to have them back and to make sure they get a great experience. So please take some time for yourselves this summer. It's going to be really important for all of us. So I know I'm going to do that. So anyway, thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.